Fleas have a 4-stage life cycle, and this can complete in as little as 2 to 3 weeks in warm, humid conditions. So if it's summertime and you're near a waterway, river, lake, ocean, and you have temperatures between 70 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You see, fleas are going to multiply in humid areas because they rely on humidity. Drop relative humidity below 50% and their Jenga tower falls really quick. So stage number 1 is the egg stage. This stage requires 50% or more of relative humidity. Adult females will lay 20 to 50 eggs after they've had a blood meal. That means once they fed on your dog and sucked up some blood. So when you see your dog scratching, she already ate, and she's probably in the process of laying the eggs. When she lays the eggs, they just don't stay on the dog. As the dog runs around, rolls on the grass or on your rug or on your furniture, these eggs flop off, especially in your dog's bedding. Now, the outer part of the egg actually retains moisture, but at a consistent less than 50% relative humidity, these eggs will desiccate or dry out and never hatch, preventing the cycle from starting. If the eggs do hatch, the next stage is the larval stage, and they look like little worm-like larvae with no eyes. They usually prefer low-lit areas that have high humidity, like your dog's bedding. You could also find them if you have humid spots in rug fibers or even soil. And these little things love to feed on debris. But I told you the eggs needed over 50% relative humidity. These guys actually need over 70% relative humidity, making them that much more susceptible. Anything below 70% relative humidity drops their survival by 80%, thus halting molting. What's molting? It's nothing more than the flea getting rid of its old exoskeleton in order to grow into a bigger one. The next stage is the pupal stage. This stage can last between 5 to 20 days or even remain dormant. It requires 50 to 75% relative humidity. What the larva does is it'll spin itself into a cocoon with debris and everything else it can find in order to transform into an adult flea. The pupae, right? The being inside of the pupa, they're pretty resilient to insecticides. So if you think that by spraying some sort of anti-flea spray, you're going to kill them, you're going to be sadly mistaken. However, like any stage in the flea's 4-stage cycle, they need humidity. You deprive them of minimally 50% relative humidity, and over time, they're going to desiccate and dry out, especially if they're dormant. And they become dormant when the conditions are not ripe for them to go ahead and hatch. The last of the flea stage is the adult stage. It could happen as fast as between 2 to 3 weeks or up to months from the moment they hatch, all depending on the conditions of the location that they're in. Now, the adult flea requires 75% relative humidity. Ain't that something? And they require that for peak activity. Talking about feeding, mating, reproduction. Once the pupae emerges from the pupa as an adult flea, it will jump on a host and feed. Once the female flea has had her blood meal, she's going to be laying eggs between 24 to 48 hours later. As far as the males, well, they just feed to stay alive and be able to reproduce. Low relative humidity reduces feeding and egg laying by 50 to 70%. So you see, the entire tower wobbles without humidity. Now let's go ahead and pull the block with these steps. Reducing relative humidity below 50%, and fleas can't hatch, feed, or breed. Here's how we can reduce relative humidity using household items on your dog yard, furniture, bedding, and rug. Step number 1, you're gonna need dehumidifiers in every single room in your home. And yes, I'm including bathrooms. Those are the most notorious for humidity. Set the humidifiers to 40%. Run them 24/7. Make sure you're taking out the water on a daily basis. Otherwise, it stops pulling water from the air. Make sure to place a dehumidifier as close as you can to your dog's bedding. If you feel there's fleas or ticks on a particular sofa you have or a certain part of the rug, you want to make sure you got a dehumidifier near those areas. Now, you don't need a big humidifier for each room. You just need it to be adequate enough for each particular room. Now, for your living room and possibly your kitchen, you may need a bigger one. Next step, numero 2, is a baking soda and diatomaceous earth dry bath. Get yourself a cup of baking soda and add yourself 2 tablespoons of food grade diatomaceous earth. Now, make sure you're wearing a mask and your dog is upwind. Diatomaceous earth is caustic, and if it falls in his eyes or he breathes it in, It's going to hurt and it could be irritating. Once you pour it on the dog, let it sit between 2 to 4 hours and then go ahead and brush it off. You can use the same combination to sprinkle on your rugs and on your furniture. You want to let it sit between 24 to 48 hours before you go ahead and vacuum it up. Also, when you vacuum, the vibrations will actually make the pupae come out of the pupa for the early killing. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about the yard area? Well, for the yard area, I strongly recommend using food-grade diatomaceous earth and sprinkling it out there when the yard isn't wet from a rain, or knowing that it's not going to rain for a couple of days. It's the best moment to actually sprinkle it out there. Diatomaceous earth under a microscope has a lot of charred little particles that will actually cut into and dehydrate the flea. Now, with the diatomaceous earth, I recommend 1 cup's worth per 100 square feet. That's 10 by 10 area. Last recommendation I'm going to give you is to wash the rugs, the bedding, and fabrics, if you can, in a washer with hot water above 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And once you do that, run it on your dryer on the highest dry heat setting possible. This will kill eggs and larvae, 100% of them, and will kill or get rid of some pupae. It also removes debris, especially in that dog bedding that larvae so desperately need to be able to survive. And obviously that prevents reinfestation. Now, repellents, along with everything I just showed you, are effective. 1 cup of apple cider vinegar, 1 cup of water, put it in a spray bottle, spray your dog every single day. Make sure you don't spray in your dog's eyes or nose. And this repels by creating pH changes in your dog's skin and coat, and it also soothes skin. The next one is very simple. It's a coconut oil dry rub. You melt 1 to 2 tablespoons of coconut oil and you dry rub it into the dog's coat and fur. Make sure to do this weekly. This repels because coconut oil has something called lauric acid, and fleas and ticks really don't like this. And an added bonus is it moisturizes your dog's skin and coat. Next one is cedarwood oil. 10 drops of cedarwood oil in 1 cup of water with 2 tablespoons of witch hazel. You go ahead and spray that daily and the smell repels fleas and ticks. It also balances the skin oils on your dog's coat. I'm going to stop it here as far as repellents that you spray on, because there's really a million combinations out there. Brewer's yeast is something you could add into your dog's food. Vitamin B's repel fleas and ticks, and they also help skin and coat. And wouldn't you know it, garlic. Yes, garlic. If you watch my videos, you've seen I've spoken about garlic at lengths. Make sure to either chop it or crush it. This way, an enzyme called allanase can be activated and can turn allan, which isn't good for dogs, to allicin, which actually becomes good for them. Everything I said about fleas, as far as using baking soda in order to dehydrate them, along with diatomaceous earth, the coconut rub, vacuuming, feeding, garlic, and brewer's yeast, all that applies. Same thing that applies to fleas applies to ticks. Now, there's something I haven't told you, and that's if your dog has a flea or tick infestation, or both, they can actually lead your dog to having anemia. Or worse, they can suppress your dog's immune system. It wouldn't be right of me if I didn't share with you my dog's health and immunity with Nuvet NuJoint DS. Now, if you watch my videos, I've spoken about how Nuvet NuJoint DS help with dogs' orthopedic issues. But it doesn't just stop there. It helps the dog's overall immune system throughout its lifetime. It even brings natural flea and tick repellents like brewer's yeast that we went over. Now, fleas can definitely infest your dog with things like tapeworm, and ticks could bring Lyme disease, even Rocky Mountain spotted fever that can affect humans as well. But one of your dog's main enemies that people don't talk about much is their nutrition. Knowing what to feed them and knowing what causes what makes you an educated consumer and allows you to become a better advocate for your dog. If you want to learn how to maximize your dog's health, make sure to click on either one of these 2 videos as we show you how dog food can affect your dog and how to get rid of common problems.